Hello. So I want to talk about VTubing a bit. That's because there are a lot of VTubers in the community, and also because it's a conversation that is coming up a lot in the space. I think that even for people that aren't interested in VTubing, this will be useful because I want to talk a little bit about advertising that might change your mind on, or kind of change your framework of how you think about things in terms of advertising. So VTubing is interesting because in one way, absolutely nothing is different about VTubing, and in another way, everything is different. So I'll try to explain what I mean. VTubing is just content creation, right? The monetization model fundamental to VTubing hasn't changed, so or fundamental to content creation hasn't changed for VTubers. So you monetize the same way, right? You're a content creator. You get money off of ads. You get money off of subscriptions. If you're on a streaming platform or if you're making VODs, you get money that way. Nothing about being a VTuber has really changed anything. So it's weird that people think about VTubing as like adjacent or even different from the content creation industry. Like it's some kind of like huge change. It isn't, because as long as the money at the as long as the money that sort of supports the foundation of it is the same, that model of monetization is the same, that it's not different. Like this, for example, like I can make YouTube videos about VR worlds, or I can make YouTube videos about the best types of bottled water in 2021. It doesn't really fundamentally matter, even though those are maybe like because they're both videos, they're both monetized right in the exact same way. So VTubing is the same thing, right? And but there's something that's changing about VTubing that I think is really significant, and that's what I want to talk about. And in the ways that, like, in another way, it's actually like completely different from anything we've ever seen before. And that's the way that virtual worlds kind of incorporate. So I'm gonna go grab this here. We're gonna pull out the notepad. So I want you to take a look at this. It's gonna look a little bit weird. This is VR chat, and there's a world called Callus Row. This is a VR world that used to be run um, by Arcadum, who is now found out some kind of iffy stuff about him. So this is no longer a thing. But I wanted to pull this up because I want you to take a look at this image here on the right. Like, what do you see? So this is a VR world that exists, and it's one of many different maps, they call them in VR chat, where you can kind of wander around. And if you have a VR headset, you can wander around as a character in these. And this in particular is a role playing community that involves several streamers. So what do we see in this here? Well, to me, the most interesting thing about this is how advertising opportunities appear. So the model of VOD and the model of streaming allows for certain types of advertisements. So you can do banner ads where you have like something show up on the stream. You can do calls to action. You can do product placement, right? You can do all kinds of different stuff with video and live streaming. What VTubing changes is the way it enables more ways for advertisers to interact with something like a VOD or a stream than I think people are thinking about. And this is really ahead of its time. Like, I think this is years ahead of like what people are thinking about. But like, look at just in particular, like these are all in-game ads. Like Talaris is like a corporation within this universe, but these could easily be ads for Coca-Cola or for 7-Up or for whatever, right? These could easily be banner ads. But let me give you another example, right? Within a VR chat world, you could make a roller coaster that's like sponsored by Cash App that you get into, and you see like signs, and then maybe you win something at the end. So VTubing is interesting because it enables a different type of advertising that I think has ever been thought of before. And and there's a couple of other interesting things too, just from like a content creation standpoint. Like there's a certain value that's attached to 3D spaces, and we're starting to see this with like NFTs, where like digital products can have value. Now you might like agree or disagree with the concept of NFTs, but what you can't deny is like there's money moving through it. There's a market. There are people buying it. And for the foreseeable future, we are going to see digital goods continue to be monetizable. I don't think that's going away. Even if NFTs are like a fad and no one really does it after a while, that's really highly debatable. It might put like the topic of another video. I don't think the digital products are going away. Things like MTX, and I think that cryptocurrency is opening the door for games and other kinds of like alternate currencies to exist and for people to earn them. So, for example, like if you look at like Southeast Asia right now, there's products, there's cryptocurrencies like Axie that are being incorporated into products that are games where people are being paid to farm that cryptocurrency and exchange for real money. That otherwise these people that would be working in construction jobs or low labor jobs or difficult third world country jobs are on their phones, which they all have, earning money through generating cryptocurrency. So like digital products have value, and a VTuber isn't. We think of VTubers, I think, in too small of a way. We're thinking of VTubers in terms of like a character on a screen that just replaces a streamer. Well, if that's all I am, then I'm exactly the same as a streamer, basically, minus like some personal stuff. Like it's more comfortable for some females to be VTubers. It's more comfortable for some males to be VTubers, which is great. It enables more people to be content creators. But I think that's like what we look at VTube. We say, oh, like this is an opportunity for more people. That's kind of like it's true, but it's like sort of smaller thinking. Like I'm thinking about like, okay, if I just take a VTuber and I put them on a screen, that's pretty similar to what I already had before. But if I put them in a virtual environment, that's really different. So then you look at people like Silverveil that have that did dance videos, and that's really interesting, right? Or like Silverveil kind of exists in a world for a little while, and you look at her most popular videos, and I'm pretty sure they're all those dance videos like this, right? So these kind of videos, right, where she exists in an actual environment, I think this is where there is some really enormous potential for VTubing and VR chat, where advertising can be put into any of these spaces, and the way that the character interacts with the that space is completely malleable to whoever is doing the creative design for that advertising. That's really interesting. So as of now, nobody that I have ever heard of is selling this kind of thing to brands. It would be pretty difficult to educate and communicate, but this is like definitely something we could look into in the future. And there's other opportunities like VR real estate. There's opportunities with NFTs right now for VTubers for you to have a piece of like a sort of digital like clothing, for example, that goes on a VTuber like Silverveil or Momo, right? Like can this outfit have digital value that somebody else owns? Right, as a portion of an NFT, absolutely, right. These are ways that we could monetize outside of the way that we're thinking about VTubing right now, and so what I'm meaning to illustrate is that like the level we're at with VTubing and the value attached to 3D spaces and is like level 1 out of like level 1,000. No one's like, these are just things that I'm thinking of right now that I can see that are like maybe 3, 4, 5 years out, and some people like enterprising VTubers who are starting to grow followings could actually monetize right now in this way. Like I'm pretty convinced that like Code Miko or Silverveil or any of the like larger concurrent viewer broadcaster VTubers or even the YouTubers like Neanners, they could probably do this right now. They could probably create a digital product that would have value or NFTs that had limited edition value. And if you don't believe that, like there's many people on Twitch already that have monetized clips through NFTs. So like they've created like a set of 10 of their top clips that you can own a portion of, and then they sell them, and they sell for like $100 a pop or $500 a pop, or in one case $1,000 a pop, like with the stock guy. So this is happening, right? And these are things to think about in terms of VTubing. That to me is the most interesting thing about VTubing. To me, there is no real objective difference between VTubing content creation and actual like traditional content creation with like a person. I don't think that those are I don't think that the ceiling or that the growth or that any of the data around those projects are any different. Like I think if you have a VTuber versus a content creator, they're still judged on the same concepts that a traditional content creator would be. Like you're not going to grow more or less because you're a VTuber. There's people that have made the argument that there's like this sort of like niche of more anime / like 3D / like VR interested people, but you can make that same argument for like that's just the total addressable market, right? That's true for any content creator. Like if I'm creating business content, there's some amount of people that are interested in business too. So there's like whether I'm here talking to you about the future of VTubing as this person or a giant fox creature doesn't matter really. I think that the potential growth is the same, and I think for VTubers should be careful as content creators to like sort of separate themselves from content creation, because they might start to think that different rules apply to them when there's no analytics or data to support that. It's pretty much the same thing, and again, as long as the monetization and methodology of discovery is the same. So how you discover a VTuber streamer and how you discover a VTuber VODs is exactly the same. It's it's SEO, it's search, it's organic discovery, it's Reddit posts, it's clips, it's all the same. There's nothing fundamentally different between VTubers and people that are not VTubers. That should comfort VTubers in case you think that you're in some kind of like niche category where you can only grow to a certain amount. We haven't seen a VTuber that's like absolutely massive with like 50 million subscribers yet, and I think that's just because that's really hard to attain anyway. And the space is still very new, right? And a lot of people don't realize that like if you're looking at somebody like Mr. Beast or somebody that has like 50 million subscribers, in many cases, it takes like 10 to 15 years for that content creator to get to that point of creating constant content and learning how to do that. So we're just not seeing that in the VTubing space yet because we just don't have that digital footprint that lasts that long. I think that's pretty straightforward. It's not because the ceiling is like, oh, Neander's is the ceiling or like 2 to 3 million subs on YouTube is the ceiling. I don't think that's the case. I think that you could go as far as anyone on YouTube has gone as a VTuber. What I'm saying is I don't think there's anything fundamentally different. The thing to think about, though, and the exciting stuff is in the sort of value and what's attached to 3D spaces. Like, are we going to see real estate? Are we going to see VTuber homes? Can those be monetized when other people go into them? Are we going to see people in VR chat that are going to be able to monetize maps and make like big Patreons and make support structures? Are VTubers going to be able to sell their clothing? Are they going to be able to sell their appearance? They're going to be able to sell new models. They're going to be able to sell. There's all kinds of questions, literally a million different questions you can ask along that space. And that's why I created this talk, is because I think that's the most interesting part of VTubing for me, is like looking at how the advertising space evolves around it. Now, one thing to keep in mind, probably last thing to keep in mind, is we're having a hard enough time on the agency side, on the brand side, we're having a hard enough time even just talking about Twitch and YouTube and Instagram and like to brands. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how far behind, especially the major like Fortune 500 brands are. They're light years behind. Like educating people on what Twitch is or what YouTube live streaming is a daily thing for me, right? I'm talking to executives who have no concept of these things. And you have to keep in mind that like it was only like 2 or 3 years ago that digital spending on ads passed traditional ads. We're talking like, when I say traditional ads, I'm talking like newspaper. I'm talking like banner ads, like billboards, right? Like I'm talking like billboards at stadiums and stuff. It's still like pretty close to like 50-50. Like millions and billions of dollars are being poured into traditional ads and television, and that have like no ROI compared to the greater engagement online. But that adoption curve is just so long for a lot of the traditional brands. So if you look at it in that context and you think, okay, well, like YouTube and Twitch, man, educating these brands is so far out. Imagine like VTubing. Imagine like 3D spaces or NFTs, right? Like it's going to be a decade for sure, like before brands are seriously standing behind that kind of like stuff. And I think that the uptick for like 3 to 5 years minimum, just from what I'm seeing on the agency world, for educating most of the major brands on digital spending across like Twitch or YouTube, right? Is probably the ticket. So VTubing even longer than that, like maybe 8+, but it's hard to see how things evolve. VR still hasn't gotten a lot of widespread adoption. So just some things to think about. But yeah, for me, like, I think that you can have a conversation about VTubing in the exact same vein as you have a conversation about the concepts of content creation. I think where it differs is advertising, and that's kind of the interesting subject. So hope this is interesting. Talk soon.